Hey guys, OGalbina here, and sometimes Draft League and competitive Pokemon in general can feel unbalanced or even unfair at times. So for today's Twitter discussion video, I asked you guys if you guys can make one healthy and one unhealthy change to competitive Pokemon or the draft meta. What would you change? So that's what today's discussion is going to be about. This will be a pretty fun video, listening to what you guys don't like, what you guys want to change about competitive Pokemon, and there's going to be some kind of wild ones and some, pretty understandable ones as well. So if you guys enjoyed today's Twitter discussion, be sure to drop a like on the video as well. Sub to the channel. We're at about 890 subs. I think it's 888 at the time of me recording this, and if you want to help me out get to 1,000, I would really appreciate it a ton. I really want to get there before Scarlet and Violet, and it would mean the world to me if you guys could help me out in the meantime. But yeah, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. So, first up, we have my good friend Diet Tight saying, healthy, chest timer on Showdown, unhealthy, no more vegetables. Also, playoffs is best of 3 without changing team. Now, we'll talk about the healthy one first, and then we'll always jump into the unhealthy afterwards. Healthy, I actually like this change a lot. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with what a chest timer is, on Wi-Fi, the way we set up Wi-Fi battles is we go through LAN and we set up a 10-minute chest timer. What a chest timer is you yourself personally have a 10-minute timer to click all of your moves throughout the game. If your personal timer runs out, the game is over. So it really kind of incentivizes you to make quick and informed decisions, and your timer skills won't negatively affect your opponents, whereas in like Gen 7 and Gen 6 on Wi-Fi and things like that, we'd have a 60-minute total timer, so you can go into a game, take a ton of time, but still end up winning if you end up having more Pokemon. In this case, you could be up 6-1 and run out of time on the chest timer and lose, and I 100% agree. Now, the means of setting up chest timer on Wi-Fi is terrible, but the actual chest timer itself, I much prefer to everything else that we use, whether it be like those 60, especially those 60-minute timers from before. I think it's an incredibly healthy timer. I think it's just very tough to set it up on Wi-Fi. Now, if every game and Showdown system would kind of implement that 10-minute chest timer, I think that would be a really, really smart idea, and it would really speed games along in a more organic fashion. And it wouldn't punish a player who's playing fast because their opponent is playing a lot slower, if that makes any sense. So I think the healthy change, that's a good one. Next one is best of 3 without changing team. Now, a lot of Showdown leagues will do best of 3 for playoffs because it kind of takes away at least a lot of that risk of someone kind of getting lucky and cheesing a battle and getting really lucky with hacks and things like that. But you typically only see best of 3 playoffs in multi-gen leagues. And what those are in Showdown, for those of you who haven't played it, is a lot of times you'll have leagues where you draft 3 different teams. One team in Gen 6, one team in Gen 7, and one team in Gen 8. And then each week during the regular season, you'll alternate which team you're playing with and playing against, if that makes any sense. So week 1 will be Gen 6, week 2 will be Gen 7, week 3 will be Gen 8, and then you'll restart the process. In playoffs, a lot of times, since you do have 3 available teams, a lot of leagues will do best of 3. And I think that's really good in that instance. However, in a counter team format, a best of 3 kind of loses its novelty when you're running against the same roster 3 times, and especially if you can't change your prep, it feels like it kind of becomes more so an information gathering game opposed to a draft league game where you have to kind of, make logical deductions and figure out where your opponent's team is throughout. If I'm going into game 2 and 3, knowing my opponent's entire team, their lure bears, their scarfers, and things like that, it kind of muddies it down. It's like you're taking an open note test, which isn't really a great testament to skill, in my opinion. So I think if it's a multi-gen league, I actually think best of 3 in playoffs is a great idea. But if you're playing with the same team over and over again, I think it kind of defeats the whole purpose of a what do you call it? Multi-gen, or a best of 3, if that makes any sense. So, and also keep in mind, when I talk about these concepts and things like that, obviously the unhealthy one, I'm going to say why they're unhealthy and why they would be terrible, or why I don't think they're a good idea. But that's the whole point. So if someone says an unhealthy thing, or if you put something in the Twitter discussion and you're like, he doesn't agree with my unhealthy change, no shit, it's an unhealthy change. But just keep that in mind. I'm going to kind of discuss why they're unhealthy, if that makes any sense to people who might not know why, I guess. Next up, we have Aquarius saying, healthy, remove Polt and Urshifu from Galadex Wi-Fi list. Unhealthy, mandate that you must bring every mon in your draft at least once throughout the season. So, healthy, I think removing Polt and Urshifu from Galadex Wi-Fi tier list is definitely a pretty healthy change. They are far and above the best Pokemon in the format, in my opinion. Now, it does kind of muddy the pool and kind of, I don't know. It makes Torn that much better than everything else, in my opinion. Torn and Mew become like the new top 2. And I don't know if I'm fully convinced that Polt and Shifu are like completely broken, but I understand the argument as to why and why some people think they should be banned. So I definitely agree with that one. Unhealthy, obviously I don't agree with this one, but again, it's an unhealthy change. I don't like this one at all in the sense that I think it really punishes teams that end up drafting a little bit more top-heavy. I know there are some people who are like, well, top-heavy is broken. That's what you get for draft top-heavy. No, it's not. Get out of 2017, brother. Anybody who says top-heavy is better and you're... don't play enough draft, in my opinion. I don't know. But mandating you bring every Pokemon in a season kind of makes the end of the season a little bit less competitive and a little bit more less, like, skill-driven than I'd like, in the sense that, say, you've been bringing your best 6 for 7 out of 8 of your weeks, then week 8 comes around, you're 4-3, you need to win to confirm playoffs, you need to win, beat your opponent, but you haven't brought in your 3 low-tier shitters that aren't very good, and aren't very good in the matchup. It kind of really limits the ability of you to win. And I get that might be more entertaining from a viewing perspective, but from a playing perspective, or from a metagame perspective, I don't like the prospect of that, if that makes sense. I get why you would want everybody to bring 1 mon in a season, but, like, at the end of the day, that's not what this format's about. This format's about looking at your opponent's team and determining your best 6 and the best course of action in order for you to win the game. Not to bring all of your Pokemon because it's an anime plotline or, like, like a Cinderella story or something like that. Next up, we have Kurt saying, healthy, age limit of 18 plus, no more J-Bears. Sorry, Hayes, which... base take. Great take. Then we have unhealthy, complex, allowing thing never ends well. You can have Arceus, but you can only click flying moves on Wednesday while wearing a white t-shirt if your opponent currently has 2 or more rock types. Like, please shut the fuck up. So I'm assuming what Kurt is referring to here is he's saying that complex bans should kind of stop being a thing, which I get it to an extent, because I agree with Kurt in the sense that I've seen leagues where they're like Genesect, but it can't run shift gear and it can only run drives, and you can't, you can't be extreme speed on, like, blank sets or whatever it might be, or like Cure and Black, but it can't run Boots and it can't run Dragon Dance and it can't run Icicle Sphere. Well, then don't allow the Pokemon. If you're turning a Pokemon into what it not really is for the sake of allowing it, you're kind of destroying the entire, like, identity of that Pokemon. I think that's too far, and you should probably just not allow the Pokemon. However, there are some instances in which I think complex bans are good. The biggest one I can think of is Speed Boost Blaziken. Speed Boost should not be allowed on Blaziken. Blaziken still plays largely the same, I think, as just like a no speed boost Blaze Pokemon, but obviously it's much more allowable and not as good. Same thing with Cinderace. I think that Libero Cinderace is way too broken, but it functions really the same as regular Cinderace. You're gonna come in, you're gonna click U-turn, and click high base power moves and Pyro Ball, Gunk Shot, and high jump kick and things like that. The only issue is it becomes a lot more broken when you can have Stab on top of it. Same thing with Torrent and Greninja and Natdex leagues. I don't think that Protean Greninja should be allowed, but they play at least somewhat the same, whereas you're going to be a fast, strong spiker that can taunt and you turn around and, throw off some pretty strong hits in some matchups, but obviously when everything is stab and you can play with your typing, you become a little bit better, a little bit too much better in my opinion. So I understand to an extent. I think the line that should be there when you're making complex bans is it shouldn't change how the Pokemon plays at a fundamental level, at least in my opinion. So that's what I think, at least. Okay. Next up, we have Tony. He's at first. He must have been the first guy. Healthy change. Popular, but limit Boots users. And then unhealthy. Extend leagues back to 12 weeks. I understand the league dies off argument, but I like playing the most of the opponent pool in a season rather than only half. So, this is the first healthy change I do not like. And this is going to be something that a lot of people disagree with me on. I don't think Boots are broken. I think Boots highlight how broken hazards can be, and I think it kind of took away a crutch of a lot of players to hazard stack Herder win the game. And I think Boots are very easily played around. There's an opportunity cost in trading off Boots opposed to leftovers and maybe a Resist Berry, maybe a Life Orb, maybe whatever item that you wanted to normally run, but you're forced into Boots because you refuse to bring hazard removal, or you don't want to bring hazard removal. I think there's a big opportunity cost. One big example is Mandibuzz. There's been so many times where this gen I've seen Mandibuzz get 2-hit KO by something, or something be a roll to be 2-hit KO, because it's not leftovers and it can't lefties out of that range. Whereas with Boots, you might be avoiding rocks, and if you keep rocks off, you don't have to worry about getting rocks off the field, but then you're potentially 2-hit KO'd. But again, you can go both ways, obviously. If you're not Boots and you're leftovers avoid that 2-hit KO, then you have to make sure that rocks stay off, and if Mandibuzz your defogger, it's kind of tough to do so. So again, there's an opportunity cost, there's a trade-off. So I don't think Boots are broken in the slightest. I think people use hazards as a crutch and don't like that their playstyle isn't objectively broken anymore. Which I do think, especially in Gen 6, a little bit less so in Gen 7, but still definitely to be true. I think Hazard Stack was phenomenal in draft in those generations, and I think this just kind of lowers that a little bit, and kind of, brings the playstyle back to earth, which you can definitely still make it work, though. so many hazard setters get knockoff, and so many hazard removers are going to be the ones holding the boots. So you can force knockoffs and continuously pressure those Pokemon to keep your rocks up and chip them down with rocks later. Like Ferrothorn is still amazing because not only does it get up rocks and spikes, but it also knocks everything off in existence, especially the things that are going to be spinning or defogging, which I think is really, really important. So I don't know. I feel like people just have to kind of open their mind when it comes to boots and realize it's not that it's broken. It's that hazard stack was a lot easier to play with. And you might just not be able to be allowed to rely on your crutch anymore, setting up a spike and rocks and, you know, winning the game immediately. So maybe that's a hot take for me, but that's what I think personally. All right. Healthy. Everything that and anything that gets justifiably or unjustifiably complained about gets banned. Holt, Shifu, Megas, and Sea Crystals get banned. Power creep mellows down and all seems right in the world. Unhealthy. You are in a geopolitical conflict and the only Pokemon is Jordan-T. So I guess this is kind of talking about what, kind of just like a commentary on what Aquarius said in the sense that banned Holt and Shifu in Galar decks. And honestly, they're banned in a lot of, what do you call it, Nat decks too, which I think is fair, but I think sometimes you have to draw a line because, and I don't mean this in a pretentious or rude way, sometimes you're going to have less experienced players or players who may have some inherent bias when it comes to a Pokemon, think something's broken, and if they complain and we ban it, then it's probably not a good idea. Like, I know this is a very extreme example, but I've played in leagues early in my draft career that banned shit like Cresselia because they didn't like playing it because it's really bulky and annoying. Does that mean Cresselia should be banned? No, it's barely worth a tier 2 pick. But it's just something to keep in mind. I feel like there's a line, and we can't just, you know, bend to everybody that wants to be, you know, catered to because they don't like X Pokemon. And the unhealthy ones, he said that under my, what do you call it, Draft League hot takes thing. I think this is a healthy change if you're only allowed to click Hurricane with Torn-T. No knockoffs, no nasty plots, no heat waves, no you turning out, obviously, because the geopolitical conflict and your only Pokemon is Torn-T. But yeah, that's going to be Marcus's take. Next up, we have Zazo saying, healthy. Make Mon's prices by usage. For every season, if a Mon has 100% usage, the Mon's price should go up by 2 points. If 80% usage, it should go up by 1 point. Applies to undrafted. This means you could see a 28-point Dragapult or a 4-point Lucario. Demand drives up prices in the real world. The more demand, the more something costs. If Dragapult costs 26 points and its drafted rate is consistently 80%, if its drafted rate is consistently 80+%. Same applies to Lucario. If Mon isn't always drafted or never drafted, your tiers are wrong. I agree to this to an extent, right? Because I've actually seen this in action. I believe BBL Showdown is doing a very similar thing, where they ran a ton of mock drafts, and they kind of adjusted things and changed things points values based on how often those Pokemon were drafted. And I think to an extent this definitely makes sense. But I think if you take it down to like an algorithmic level, I don't think it's a great idea, because I think drafting in itself is about finding value in tiers, and if I see a 3-point Lucario, obviously I'm going to draft it. But if I love a Pokemon like Thundy and it's 20 points, I'm not going to draft it because it's not worth that price point, in my opinion. I think there's still like an inherent value or something, and just because something is overpriced doesn't mean people aren't going to draft it, because they might need it to fill a certain hole or, you know, patch a certain part of their draft. And the same thing with lower tier Pokemon, things like that. And there might be Pokemon that just don't get drafted very often because they don't offer a ton of utility, whether they be offensively, defensively. They might not, you know, resist things that you want them to resist for your build, whatever it may be, and it might not even be their price point. Like Pokemon like Lucario, I haven't drafted the thing in like 2 years, but I think it's really good. It's just really hard to fit onto teams. Now, do I think Lucario should be 5 points because of that? I don't think so. So I think maybe if we have Pokemon like Gyarados and Crawdaunt that are really good, but never get drafted, and let's say you have them in 10 points, move them down to 8 points. I think that's completely fair, but if it comes down to like an algorithmic level, I think that's a little bit too much, and I think prices will get a little too skewed, in my opinion. So I'm not the biggest on like following that to a T, but I get the idea of making it to where Pokemon that aren't used are finally getting drafted a little bit more, if that makes any sense. So, yeah. Healthy. We have Trexo, sorry. Healthy. Create a battle sim with rotating available mons to keep the game fresh constantly. Unhealthy. Allowing S tiers instead of just doing Ubers. This healthy take might be my favorite one. I absolutely love this idea, and I would lose my mind if Pokemon made like a Battle Revolution and they kind of like made a battle sim type game where they had like a rotating 500 Pokemon available and they drop like 50 of them and add 50 of them every like month or so or something like that, or every couple months. That would make draft so incredibly interesting. We would have constantly rotating tiers. Pokemon would be better in a certain metagame opposed to a different metagame because of its maybe its top 3 checks in the game are just not in the game, so it runs rampant. We might have a metagame where Regieleki is good because we have 50% less ground types or something like that. Like, I think stuff like that would make draft so much more fresh and consistent, and it would last so much longer throughout the gen, and we wouldn't get to, 4 or 5 years into Gen 8 where people are just sick of doing draft and they want to do different metagames like Little Cup and Ubers and S tiers and whatever it might be. So I think that is a phenomenal take. It's actually probably my favorite take out of everything on this list. So I think this would be awesome, and I think I might cry for days if this ended up happening. This would be amazing. Unhealthy, allowing S tiers instead of just doing Ubers. I think that's fair in Gen 8. In Gen 7, I feel like there was a much more readily available pool of like S tier Pokemon. And for those of you who don't know, S tier is kind of like that weird middle ground where it's like, it's an Uber. It's too good for regular draft, but it's also not a Lunala, Marshadow, Rayquaza type Pokemon. It's like your Protean Greninjas, your Libero Cinderaces, your Dragapult Urshufus, if you count those as S tier Pokemon, your Kyurem Blacks, things like that. The only issue is in Gen 8, we don't have any Megas. And not only are the Megas gone, we also have Greninja gone, which was 2 S tiers in itself with Protean and Ashgren. And then we obviously also have things like Mega Metagross gone, and we have things like Mega Blaziken gone. And there's definitely a lot of really cool S tiers that were kind of less in Gen 7. And I think S tiers in Gen 7 was a really fun thing. I love playing in S tier leagues then. I made an S tier league and played in an S tier league in Gen 8, and we had to allow shit like Dialga and, what do you call it? We didn't allow Dialga, actually. We allowed shit like Reshiram and Giratina Origin and, crazy Pokemon like that Solgaleo, which probably aren't S tiers. They're a little too good in my opinion. So I actually agree with this. I think we kind of stretched because people are getting bored with the gen and getting a little stale, so there's nothing wrong with it, but fundamentally it doesn't make as much sense, if that makes any sense. Okay. Next up, we have Zazo's unhealthy take, saying unhealthy, make league/tournaments buy-ins. I'd love to see a 32-man league with a $50 buy-in, winner takes all. That would be really cool if I could pick the player list and totally rig it to where I win. How much money would that be? If it's winner take all, let's see, 32 times 50. That is $1,600 for playing Pokemon, my friends. I think that would be a lot of fun. Maybe we make it a little bit less. Maybe say it's a 32-man buy-in and it's $20. $640 for one person at the top, and I think that would really bring out like that competitive edge in a lot of people, and I know I love that. I know some people don't play draft for that, especially on the Wi-Fi side of the community. I feel like people would be upset with how serious some people would take it. Like, I would take that insanely serious, obviously, because I would want to win $700 for playing Pokemon. I'd want to win $1,600 for playing Pokemon, and I think that would be really cool. And obviously, if my money's on the line, I want to win and not, be in the hole and lose money. So I think this would be fun. I would understand why people wouldn't want to do this though, but I would love to do it once in a while. Okay, next up we have Joe Carlino saying, healthy suggestion, limit the amount of choice items the team can have. Unhealthy suggestion, bring back hidden power, but limit the types a specific Pokemon can become. Secondary option, NFL style regular season. While you're at it, sub to OGalbina and all the Beagle Cook. Joe, I appreciate you plugging. If you haven't subbed to the channel already, Joe's telling you to, and Joe's a smart guy. So, make sure you drop a sub. We're on our way to 1,000. I would really appreciate it. Now, this healthy suggestion, as smart as Joe is, I think this is a really bad take, because I think this implies that choice items are inherently broken, whereas they are not. There's, again, like a big... I hope I'm using this term right. Like, there's an opportunity cost, and there's a big cost in general. I'll just say cost now, so I don't sound like an idiot if I'm using the term wrong. There's a big cost to using a choice item. Yes, you might be faster, you might be stronger, but you're taking that, you're taking that issue. What am I saying? You're running that item and getting that boost at the boon of you not being able to click any other moves until you switch out and switch back in. And then again, you were locked in. So there's obviously a big cost to it. There's a downside to being choice. And there are a lot of Pokemon that just can't deal with being choice despite them wanting that extra speed, that extra power, and things like that. A big example to me is like Hoop Unbound. Hoop Unbound with a choice band on it, or choice specs, or a choice scarf on it is really threatening if you click the right button. But if you do not, it becomes incredibly much easier to pivot around. Opposed to if you're running Life Orb or Extra Belt or Assault Vest or something like that, you might be slower, a little bit weaker. But if you can position yourself well, your prediction game is okay. You can make more mid-ground clicks. You can make a prediction as something comes in and then still be able to punish if you get the play wrong and things like that. There's a little bit less inherent risk involved with running those items. So I don't think that choice items are broken. So I don't think that we need an item clause for them. And then in general, outside of a tier like Little Cup, which for those of you who play Little Cup, they're at least the way APA runs their Little Cup stuff, and we're kind of I don't want to say this without sounding cocky. We're kind of like, I don't know, the standard when it comes to Little Cup rulings and Little Cup draft leagues and things like that. So most Little Cup draft leagues run an item clause where you can only run 2 of a single item, and that is to kind of limit the amount of Eviolite, Berry Juice, and Berry Juice that you have, because those 2 items are far and above better than everything else in the game when it comes to Little Cup. And the metagame becomes incredibly stale if everything can hold an Eviolite and a Berry Juice. But in singles, that's just not the case. There is no inherently broken item that is so much better than everything else, including boots. Yes, everybody. Again, boots are not broken. So I don't think that it's ever a good idea to have any kind of item clause in standard draft league. The only metagame in which I think it's a good idea is in Little Cup. But that's me personally. Another suggestion is bring back Hidden Power. And I think what he's saying is, like, before the season, maybe you can only pick a certain, what do you call it, type of Hidden Power that it can use, or a certain 3 types. But at the end of the day, I don't know if that really fixes Hidden Power. In the sense that you could just pick the ones that are, you know, good on your Pokemon. If I have Volcarona, I'm probably going to pick HP Ground. I might even pick a random HP Rock for the Talonflame, Charizard, and Moltres of the world, you know? So I'm not super big on that suggestion personally. Now, I don't know if I think that Hidden Power is objectively broken, but I will say I very welcomely like that it's not in the game anymore, if that makes any sense. I thought that I like having my Heatran check Volcaronas because they can't click HP Ground. I don't like my Volcarona to be able to call on the power of water because I wanted a water coverage move in a certain matchup. I don't think it makes any sense, and it makes prepping much more annoying. I don't know. I don't personally like it. I don't think it's inherently broken, but I do like that Hidden Power is removed, so I'd like it to stay out of the game. But I don't think it's like a bad take to be like, yo, Hidden Power is, I want Hidden Power back. You know what I mean? So, that's my take personally. Where are we at? Oh my gosh, we have so many more. Okay. We have Badass Frost saying, I don't know if this is healthy or unhealthy, but it's something I don't see anyone talk about. In future gens, we likely won't have all the moves returning, so to keep it interesting, I hope it's a random 5% or so not in the game. So, it's not the same moves that are permanently gone, except Hidden Power, as you can stay out, which we just talked about. I don't know, because I also feel like 90% of the moves that were removed, 95% of the moves that were removed, weren't a big deal. I think I missed Tail Glow, I missed Pursuit, because I think Pursuit's an amazing addition, and then, like, Signal Beam was a dumb move to remove, because it was a good coverage move for a lot of Pokemon, like Necrozma, Jolteon, whatever it might be. But yeah, I don't know if I think that random 5%, because then we could really have some unbalanced shit leave the game, which could be really unfortunate. Imagine if just Stealth Rock gets snapped one gen, or Scald gets snapped one game. I don't know. EQ is just gone now. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that to the fullest extent. I get the idea, but I'm not super big on that. Next up, we have Fran here saying, healthy, give us accurate physical / special moves that don't have them. Oh, give us more actually accurate. Okay, so like, more accurate and stronger flying type special moves, and a more accurate rock slide. Would make offensive flying types better, and maybe I'd actually like Terrakion. Okay, so I get this idea, and I think it's cool, especially with rock typing. We don't have a 100% accurate, like, decently base-powered rock move, and I get, like, why thematically, like, rocks can miss when you throw them at people. But at the end of the day, I feel like it kind of really hampers on the type offensively whenever I click an offensive move that I have the chance to miss. Moves like Rock Blast shouldn't be not 100% accurate, in my opinion. So, I would agree. Maybe we buff Rock Blast, which would be cool. And then, as for flying, maybe make moves like Drill Peck more distributed. I feel like Brave Bird is oftentimes very low drawback. Now, maybe make Air Slash 100% accurate. I think that would maybe be a good idea. Or maybe nerf it 5 base power and make it 100% accurate. Something like that. I think that would definitely be fair. So, that's a good take from Fran. And then we have Unhealthy Give Gen 8 Mons plus make into Toxic. Quite literal Toxic change. You know what? That's fair, and I personally would love this. I understand why it would be broken. Could you imagine Pokemon like Dragapult, Corviknight, Regieleki with the ability to Toxic things? I think that would be amazing. I think Toxic would make Pult bannable. I think Toxic would make Corviknight so much better and so much less passive. And I would think Regieleki would actually be a good Pokemon with Toxic. I'll say it. That thing with its speed tier and sub-toxic variants would just be obnoxious to play against. There are no Scarfers that outspeed you. I don't know. I think that would be a really cool idea. You could wear down your own checks. You could finally punish your own checks. I would actually draft that Pokemon if it got Toxic. So I think this is a cool change. I agree. Probably unhealthy because a lot of these Pokemon... And again, it makes sense thematically. And I think Dragapult will be banned with Toxic. I really do. I think sub-toxic Pult and Toxic Hex sets are so much better than Willow Hex sets in most matchups and things like that. So I think that would be cool. Okay. Next up, we have healthy. No restrictions on items or moves that are allowed by Smogon OU. Unhealthy, allowing banned Pokemon into the roster. If they are considered unbalanced for a meta without limitations, then they should be considered even tougher on a restricted meta such as draft. I don't like either of these takes. I think people who put draft in a bubble with Smogon don't truly understand what draft is. And the same thing with the bottom where it's like, we shouldn't, when we can counter team and build for things, it should make it tougher for them to succeed as they do in Smogon. I think that's true for some Pokemon. Things like Spectrier and G-Darm and Dracovish are obviously much worse in draft than they are in Smogon, but there are some Pokemon who are much better in draft when you can kind of identify and, you know, counter team your opponent and bring certain sets and choose your coverage and things like that. Like Blaziken is the perfect example. Speed Boost Blaziken, I don't care what anybody says, is way too good for Galadex Wi-Fi draft, or like just Galadex draft. It's way too good, but it's very mediocre in OU. I think it might even be UU right now. And I think the main issue with Blaziken in Smogon is the sense that it does not have the movesetts to cover everything in the OU metagame very well. But I'm not playing Toxapex plus Lotties plus blank, you know, X coverage mod plus Tapu Fini or whatever it might be in every single game. I'm going to face 1, 2, 3 of those Pokemon a season, and if I'm facing them, they probably don't have the other OU checks that check me. And if even if they do, that's one matchup. Every other matchup, my Blaziken is going to have the movesets to run what it needs to. So obviously, we do not allow Speed Boost Blaziken, or we should. I guess there are some leagues that allow it. So I think that's just putting draft too much in a bubble, whereas it's a much more complex meta when it comes to the team building process and when it comes to balancing and things like that, in my opinion. Healthy from Otto here saying people being more open to new ways to playing the format. What's the standards days? Nothing like the GBA season, the first GBA season. Unhealthy, impossible enforcing here, so I'll say, but ban any type of help with picks, help and prep, reagents, mocks, etc. So I think it's always a healthy thing for people to be more open-minded, but I think obviously we can't force people to play our league and our format that we want. I love Little Cup Draft. I have apps open for Little Cup Wi-Fi, and you should all apply for that. I'll leave the app in the description below. But I'm not going to be like, you know, you guys who won't try aren't open-minded enough and won't want to try my league. If you don't want to play Little Cup, then don't play Little Cup. If you like the standard draft league formula, which I personally like, play that instead. The second one is really crazy, and I know it's an unhealthy change, but I feel like the way Otto worded it here, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, Otto, if you end up watching this, or if anybody else is like, no, I don't think that's what he means, let me know. But it seems like he's saying the only reason it's unhealthy is because there's no way to properly enforce it. But it's kind of implying that getting prep help, getting mocks, getting help with your picks, help with your free agents, is an inherent advantage over someone else, and I think that's a really bad take. I think it just means maybe you don't have people that help you prep, or I don't know what it, I don't know. I really don't think this is a good take at all, though. I really think this is a really odd take in general. You can be given a team, you can be given a vehicle, but you can't be taught how to drive it. They're not driving it for you. Obviously, we don't allow ghosting. That's different. If someone is playing the game with you, then that is you getting an inherent advantage over your opponent who is playing by themselves. But if you are building a team and you don't know how to pilot it, you are going to lose just as bad as if you built that team yourself. So it's a little bit different. Honestly, I would hate if someone built my team for me, because I wouldn't have the hands-on experience with building it, and I wouldn't understand what the team is supposed to do very well. So I think this is one of the worst takes on this list. I don't know. I'm not big on that, but yeah. Next up, we have Soulblaze saying, stop allowing Ubers in standard draft, like Libero, Protean, Gren, Zamazenta, and DOS. Take them back to where they belong, Ubers. Step 1, remove playoffs. Step 2, release schedule before draft starts. What? I don't know. So the first one, I get it. Obviously, if you're playing leagues that allow Protean, Gren, Libero, Ace, maybe they shouldn't be there, but I don't think that Zama or DOS are inherently broken, so I don't know if I agree there. Just because something has an Uber's tag on it doesn't mean it's broken in draft, because then we're implying that Spectre, Darm, and Dracovish are broken, and I don't know. So I think it, requires a little bit more of just deductive reasoning and things like that. Unhealthy, removing playoffs kind of defeats the entire purpose. I don't know. I guess they're saying like whoever gets the best record just wins the league, but I feel like that just really de-incentivizes people to try. past the top 3 seeds maybe. Maybe a guy runs away with it and he's 6-0 after 6 weeks and nobody else can physically catch up to him. Why is anybody else going to play their games? What is the point? I don't know. And I feel like playoffs rewards consistency over the course of more games, whereas without it, we don't really do that. So I don't know. I don't like this take. And then releasing schedule before draft starts, that's not the biggest deal in the world, because I know a lot of people are worried about being C-teamed and blah, blah, blah. But if you got a guy who is raw C-teaming just you, yeah, they might beat you. They might have a better matchup against you, but then they're going to have a shitty team and they're not going to be able to beat everybody else on their schedule. So if you're really C-teaming that hard against people, then you're probably going to do terrible. And if you're just saying like, I don't have X for blanks, you know, Pokemon, I'm going to draft this Pokemon to check it. People do that already. There's been so many times in a draft where I'm like, yo, if I play blank guy, I lose to X Pokemon. I would like a soft check to it on my team. So, yeah, I don't know. Next up, we have Muscle Tussle here saying healthy, maybe unhealthy, ban all hazards. That would be an unhealthy change. And I would understand a little bit more on a Gen 6 and 7 perspective, but I think in a generation where boots exist and, you know, removal is enough widespread to where you don't even guaranteed like really need to run them. There are plenty of players who don't even run boots a lot. I don't think that we should ban all hazards. I don't think they're inherently broken. But yeah, that's my take at least. Next up, we have Keegan saying you should be allowed to ban one Pokemon on your opponent's team each week. Decide for yourself where that belongs. I decide in unhealthy, because what is to stop someone every week banning my Dragapult that I drafted first overall because they don't want to play it, you know? So I get the idea of like being able to like pick and choose a ban. I think like that would be really fun in like an off-season tour, just like a funny like one-off friends league or something like that. But like objectively, I don't think that's a very good competitive change, in my opinion. Next up, we have Hungster Joey saying healthy, a draft format that prevents you from drafting the same mon used in the past 2 seasons, so people are actually allowed to try new mons / use new mons that they usually don't get comfortable with new modes of play. Unhealthy, allow Ubers without complex bans. So that unhealthy check, allow Ubers, is just like, that's playing in Ubers League. So like that's not super unhealthy, just playing in Ubers League. This healthy check, I get the idea, right? In the sense that like you want to be able to try new Pokemon, but you never get to try X Pokemon that you have been really wanting to try, you know, every single season. The only issue with that is I feel like a lot of the time when people don't draft the Pokemon they want, it's that they're not valuing them high enough. If you really want to try Thundy T, draft it round 2. Don't be upset when you get sniped round 5 and you're like, I never got to draft Thundy T. I really want to try it. Obviously, there's different instances, like the top tier Pokemon. You really want to try Dragapult, but it keeps going first overall, and you don't get first overall picks. I'm sorry, that's just the luck of the draw. That's just how drafting works, in my opinion. And everybody can't be satisfied and get to use the cool Pokemon they want to use every season, in my opinion. So I'm not super big on that personally. So I'm not very big on it. Next up, we have Superhero Sato or Sato Udo saying, unsure if this is the first is unhealthy or not, so I'll label them both as unhealthy. Number 1, item clause would be cool because it places a higher value on gathering information. We already talked about that. I don't think item clause is a very good idea in any format besides Little Cup. Number 2 is open team sheet for playoff matches, similar to VGC games. And I already forget because I asked what a team sheet is because I'm not a VGC player. But Battles Process kind of explained it a little bit here, saying open team sheets tournaments and VGCs where all teams moved and items are given to the opponent before the match. If it were incorporated in draft, it would remove any surprise factor. And it would, and I don't like that because I feel like draft is a counter draft format. It's about gathering information. And I feel like these two things kind of are like at complete odds in what they want, right? Because item clause, again, while I don't agree, it helps you gather information a little bit more. You see a scarf, you're like, okay, it's scarf. That's the scarf. It's gone. Or that's one of 2 potential scarves. It's a leftovers. They can only have one more. Whatever it might be. Whereas the open team sheet, you see what your opponent has, and it takes away all novelty. It kind of just drastically reduces the viability of things like resist berries or weakness policies or, you know, all these items that are meant to catch your opponent off guard and, you know, kind of give you that wow, that surprise factor. It eliminates that entire part of the format. And I'm not a big fan of that personally. So, especially in a counter teaming format, it just kind of defeats all purpose, in my opinion. It would make prep incredibly stale. So I'm not a big fan of that one for sure. Wombo cause for unhealthy is insane. People will grab a gird and fly. This is set outside. He said, for me, unhealthy would be abolishing no timer allowed in leagues, and unhealthy would be perma weather like we had in Gen 5. These are fun ones. Healthy would be abolishing no timer allowed in leagues. And I think this is actually a good take. There are still some showdown leagues, and I get it. You're with your friends. You don't want to, you know, be too sweaty about it, blah, 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 whatever it might be. But if I'm giving you 2 minutes to make a turn, I don't know. I feel like you don't need that much time personally. Maybe it's just me saying like, yo, I need to go do things that exist in the real world. So I don't think you need that much time, and I really don't. And I think a lot of it is a lot of skill in Pokemon is kind of being able to make those decisions quickly, making informed, educated guess based on the information that you already have. And especially in showdown leagues where you have so much information readily available in front of you, there's no excuse to sit there for 2 minutes. You don't need to calc everything, in my opinion. So, and then unhealthy would be perm weather like Gen 5. I think it's pretty easy to explain why this is unhealthy. If you have the rain team and your opponent doesn't have the rain team, and you can send in your Pelipper, one, not need to rock a damp rock to extend your rain, and two, have it up the entire game. Rain becomes incredibly overwhelming, obviously. Sand becomes incredibly overwhelming. Sun becomes incredibly overwhelming because a lot of the skill in beating rain, hail, sun, whatever it might be, all of those weathers, a lot of it comes in pivoting around and stalling out those sand turns or those weather turns, and then being able to go through your opponent's team accordingly and things like that. It gives your opponent has a finite resource that they have to kind of keep in account, and when we make it permanent, it's very easy. We can even just send in our Pelipper to die, and if sand is up forever, it's up forever. Or force to bring like random sunny day techs and things like that, which I don't think is very healthy. So obviously unhealthy. It would be pretty funny if you had the rain team though. Helium Helix says limiting extensions is his healthy change. Unhealthy is normalizing hacks, and these are very vague. So limiting extensions, I think this one makes sense. Obviously, this one's not super vague. I think it's more so the second one that's vague. But yeah, I play in a league that I think allows 3 extensions, and I think this is a good idea. If you don't have the time to not have to extend your game more than 3 times, if you're that busy, you probably shouldn't be playing. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean like you're too busy. You probably shouldn't be playing, because I think a lot of people go into leagues and go into scheduling and things like that, kind of keeping their own time into account and kind of thinking like, well, I'm busy at this time. I'm busy at this time. We have to realize that you're dealing with other people's time as well. So to kind of discount it and be like, oh, well, I need to extend. I need to extend. I need to extend. I need to play on Tuesday. I need to play on Wednesday next week or blah, blah, blah. Something came up. You're probably too busy and you probably shouldn't be playing. So I think limiting extensions is fine, because we give the boot to people who are too busy to play. I'm not too busy to play, and that's why I love playing, and that's why I'm still uploading, because there will probably be a day in which I cannot play Pokemon Draft League anymore. And I'll know when that time comes, but for now, I don't want to sit around and wait for you because you have X many things to do and you forgot about this thing and blah, blah, blah. Normalizing hacks, I'm not too keen on like what this means. I guess it's like the whole like, be nice. If your opponent hacks you, it's okay. It's part of the game. I get that to an extent, but you know me, I'm a salty bastard. I get upset when I get hacks because I put time into my prep. I put time into my play, and I'm going to be upset when things don't go my way and RNG is not in my favor. And I expect my opponents to be upset when I get lucky. I think that's fine if you're like, dude, this dude got lucky and cheesed me because I got lucky and cheesed you. You're damn right, I did. I'm sorry, I apologize. Obviously, I'm not upset, but I understand why you're upset. Now, we shouldn't personally attack people. And, you know, there's definitely been times where I myself have gone too far and I've, you know, ripped into a person because I got hacked, whereas obviously it's not their fault, and we shouldn't do that. But being upset is something that I think that a lot of, especially in like the YouTube side of the Pokemon community, people feel like they can't be upset, they can't show visual frustration when they get unlucky, they get cheesed out of something, and I think that's bullshit personally. But that's just me. I understand it's also coming from the perspective of a guy who gets upset when he gets hacked. And I probably always will. It's just how I'm hardwired. I don't know, and I'm not going to apologize for that. But obviously, you show your opponent respect, but being upset is okay. Then we have the Phil Nelson coming up with healthy, make one toxic 100% accurate, unhealthy, make toxic 100% accurate. So true, bestie. 100%. But yeah, that's going to be our Twitter discussion. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any healthy or unhealthy changes you would like to make to competitive Pokemon or Draft League or whatever it might be, definitely let me know in the comments below. We have another fun Twitter question going right now, so if you want to follow my Twitter, OG_Albina. I have another one that is asking you guys, what regional variants do you hope that there are in Scarlet and Violet? And I think that one will be a lot of fun, kind of theory mining and things like that. So definitely stick around for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, drop a like for me, drop a sub.